what we wanted to do today is help our viewers, our listeners understand that, under today's sort of difficult immigration climate and COVID-19 causing additional hurdles, it is still a possibility. It's still very much an option to immigrate to the U.S. Via the EB-5 investment program. And there are also ways to come to the U.S. under a shorter time period. And from there, you could still immigrate if that's what you're interested in doing, to become a green card holder. Now, as I mentioned, my name is Christian Triantaphyllis. I'm an immigration attorney with Jackson Walker. Jackson Walker is a full-service law firm with over 400 attorneys, 7 offices across the United States. While we do have a full service of law services, I am the investment immigration chair based out of our Houston office, where we have a handful of attorneys and paralegals and other legal service providers working on immigration matters every day. A large part of our practice is investment immigration, with the majority of these being EB-5 cases and E2 investor visa cases. I've been recognized as one of the top EB-5 immigration attorneys over the last several years. I'm a frequent speaker and writer on the topic and have served as an expert panelist with the American Immigration Lawyers Association for several years as well. As I mentioned before, I do work with foreign investors from around the world, some of whom will fly to my office in Houston to meet me. Others I have met in their home countries through some of my international travels, and others where there is no face-to-face meeting, rather through phone calls or video conference. We establish a working relationship, retained as their attorney, and we move forward together through their EB-5 immigration journey. Many of those clients have had good success already navigating the EB-5 program, and others are just starting out with moving forward with EB-5 this very month, taking on new clients under the current immigration climate, and COVID-19 as being one of those reasons why people are choosing to move forward. Now, as we talk about EB-5 and the immigration process, I thought it would be important to first understand the makeup of the immigration system for the United States. This chart demonstrates what non-immigrant visa types look like and what immigrant processes look like. And what I mean by that is non-immigrant visa types are more short-term, specific reasons for being in the United States. The immigrant processes are to become a lawful permanent resident. This is the green card process that is different from being a visa holder. Green card, as again I said, you're becoming a resident in the United States, and if you meet qualifications beyond that, you can eventually apply for U.S. citizenship. So in the blue area of the chart, we've got our visa types. This is some samples or examples of different visas that people pursue. We've got our B1, B2, that is our visitors, our F1 student visas, a handful of employment authorization visas, H1B, L1, O1, and we've got our E2 investor visa option, which is something to keep in mind as we talk about the presentation, talk through the presentation. Our immigrant processes, there are a number of different employment-based options. EB-5, sort of the employment-based option of the hour. This is specifically relying on making an investment in the United States, and we'll be speaking about that in more detail. Now, we must discuss the fact that the United States has been experiencing some temporary immigration bans that have been introduced under the Trump administration in 2020. In April of this year, there was an introduction of the suspension of immigrant visas that have been put into place. And those immigrant visas refer to these immigrant processes back on this chart under the employment-based options of EB-1 through EB-4, with EB-5 being an exception. It's exempt from the ban. So EB-5 is still available under the temporary suspension of immigrant visas. In addition, this month, very recently, there was the introduction of the suspension of some non-immigrant visa options. Again, that's back to this chart in the blue side, where H-1B, H-2B, J, and L-1 were in fact temporarily suspended for new visas. And in the meantime, E-2, which is a non-immigrant visa, remains as an exception to the ban. So EB-5, E-2, both of which are investor visa options, investor options for foreign nationals, remain as viable options for interested entrepreneurs from around the world. There have also been some country-specific immigration bans introduced this year. Some of those countries that come to mind: Nigeria, Iran, Kyrgyzstan, and a few others, Yemen. They are experiencing specific immigrant visa bans at the moment. Now, those are short-term, some of which will be expiring. These bans will be expiring later this year. However, there are exceptions or waivers that can be applied for if you are subject, if you're from a country that's subject to one of these immigration visa bans. We've had some success in helping clients getting a waiver based off of having an approved petition, waivers dealing with ties to the United States, demonstrating the need for that investor to get to the US. That helps both the US side of the investment and the investor's purposes of travel to the US. Other ways that people have been able to navigate this immigration ban for country-specific foreign nationals is by immigrating to the United States under their second passport. Perhaps they have another passport that is not subject to the ban and therefore have been able to come into the US that way. In addition, many of these country-specific bans, as I said, are only applying to immigrant visas. So someone who may decide, let's say Nigeria, for instance, to enter the US as an E-2 visa holder or visitor visa holder, could then, in the long term, be applying for EB-5, and if done correctly, could wind up as an EB-5 green card holder by converting from their E-2 status in the US to their EB-5 green card status. So there are various ways we've been able to work with clients on navigating these immigration bans, and the key is that EB-5 specifically remains as the most viable option in terms of employment-based immigration. We're also been experiencing COVID-19 issues, that mainly pertaining to US consulates being closed around the world since March because of the global pandemic. Now, a few points of interest, though, are that EB-5 and other petitions continue to be processed by USCIS in the United States. And what I mean by that is a foreign investor who makes their investment in an EB-5 project and files their EB-5 petition will still have their petition processed by US Immigration. The EB-5 office is based in Washington, D.C. USCIS officers have continued to process cases while we've experienced closures around the world for US embassies. I've had I-526 petitions, these EB-5 petitions, approved this very month and last month during the global pandemic. So again, now would be the time to move forward, and by the time your I-526 petition, your EB-5 case is approved, we would anticipate seeing your US consulate open by then. We've already seen some openings of US consulates. There's a very helpful link through the US Department of State that you can click on various countries, on any country that you choose, to see if they're already offering visa appointment dates, or whether they're still strictly available only to emergency travel. But as we move further and further into the summer, I think we'll see more and more of the consulates open up so we can get our immigrant visa appointments and non-immigrant visa appointments set for our clients. So the EB-5 Green Card basics that I'd like to speak about are dealing with three kind of main components. The EB-5 program was set up in 1990, and while we didn't see a whole lot of activity in the program initially, it really took off 2008, 2009, and has remained very popular to this day. It currently involves making a $1.8 million investment into a U.S. project. However, that investment can be reduced to a $900,000 amount if the location of that project is in a targeted employment area. We've talked about this a little bit already during our series of presentations. A project can qualify as being in a targeted employment area, or a TEA for short, by being based in a rural area that's 20,000, that's under a 20,000 population and outside of a city, or in an area that is not rural, so it would be based in a city, but qualifies under high unemployment. That's 150% of the national unemployment average. So many of the projects out in the marketplace today qualify at the $900,000 level, but it's very important that you've heard from our projects here today that have done their due diligence or have their pretty much automatic qualifications as being in a rural area, for example, to be qualifying at that $900,000 amount. As a result of your investment, the project needs to create 10 new jobs on your behalf. These jobs, because you're dealing with regional center investments, are going to be indirect job creation through an economics study. So that economic study is going to show that your jobs are being created based on being invested with the project and spent by the project. You've got a handful of resources that are presented to you today that can help you feel confident and understand exactly how and why your jobs will be created by the project. Your investment funds need to be demonstrated that they're coming from a lawful source. I work with clients, with EB-5 clients, every day on these types of matters, documenting these sources of funds, where the investment funds came from, and how they made their way to the EB-5 project. And I'll be speaking a little bit more about that. So who can immigrate with you as the investor based on making a single $900,000 investment? Well, this will involve you as the investor, your spouse, and your unmarried children under the age of 21 years old. And for the most part, if the I-526 petition, the first petition of the immigration process, is filed while your children are still under the age of 21, they will be able to immigrate with you throughout the EB-5 process and wound up as green card holders, with a few exceptions of certain backlogged countries. But for the majority of the countries out there, for the majority of foreign nationals, that is the case. So if your children are near the age of 21, let's talk and get everything prepared and filed before they are aging out of the process. Now, I mentioned the source of investment funds as being a key part of this process. I have worked with all kinds of different source of funds scenarios, meaning clients who have demonstrated that their funds come from a variety of different sources. So whether it be accumulation of salary from employment, or whether it's a sale of an asset such as real property, maybe it's receipt of a loan from a bank or a shareholder's loan, or perhaps it's a gift from a family member or even a friend. I've worked on that type of source of funds and developed an adequate, sufficient package of source of funds documents that will be included in your EB-5 petition when filing with U.S. immigration in the United States. I guess the point of this slide is this is a very important measure to take care of in your EB-5 case, but it can be tackled. This is something, again, that I've been working on for nearly a decade with over 1,000 EB-5 investors at this point, and we would be happy to discuss how it is that you came across your investment funds and would be interested in immigrating to the U.S. This slide demonstrates what a sample EB-5 project and you as the investor would be investing into looks like. Now, this varies per project. This doesn't mean what every project looks like. This is a sample, but I think this slide helps investors visualize or conceptualize what it is that you're investing into. So as the investor, you'd be making that $900,000 or $1.8 million equity investment into the EB-5 limited partnership or an LLC. We call this the new commercial enterprise, or the NCE for short. This is the fund that you're participating in. And the fund is sometimes managed by a regional center. This is an entity that has received designation by U.S. Immigration to manage EB-5 funds, or perhaps the NCE will just be affiliated with the regional center. In either case, the funds will then be loaned out or made as an equity investment into the project that creates the jobs on the investor's behalf. This is also part of the investment process and part of the terms set up between the NCE and the project in terms on how the funds will be making money on behalf of the investors. Remember, the investment needs to be an at-risk investment with a chance for loss or gain. So we'll certainly see the investment terms as depicted in the limited partnership agreement, but also between the NCE and the project. Now, sometimes you'll see that the project has other forms of financing as well, or oftentimes I should say, you don't want the project to be strictly reliant on EB-5 financing. And so at times there will be a senior loan or a bank loan involved, and then of course developer equity to help develop the project as well. But this is just a sample of what the investment structure might look like. Now, why would you want to become a green card holder in the United States? Green card holder means you're a lawful permanent resident. This creates a lot of freedom and flexibility for you and your family members. It allows you to live and work wherever you'd like to in the United States. So if you invest in one part of the country under EB-5, that doesn't mean that needs to be where you're going to need to be based. You can live wherever you'd like to in the U.S. And the green card offers you that work authorization to work for whatever employer you'd like to, or work for yourself. You also don't have to work. I mean, you can go to school, you can retire, you can travel back and forth internationally. It really does offer a great deal of freedom and flexibility for the investor, and again, for the investor's spouse and children. So children can go to school, as I mentioned, using the green card, and will not be considered as part of the international student pool, but instead as a U.S. student, and can qualify for in-state tuition, which is a big financial saver, considering the fees that international students are expected to pay. There are some government programs that you get access to, and government healthcare options as well. And it does set up that path if you choose to apply for U.S. citizenship, which means becoming a passport holder in the United States. So that is the step prior to becoming a U.S. citizen. Now, here's what the EB-5 timeline or step-by-step process looks like as an EB-5 investor. Now, that top rectangle there describes prepare source of funds for I-526 petition, and the EB-5 investor will invest with the project. That needs to be done in order for me to file the first petition of the process, the I-526 petition. So when I'm filing that petition, you'll have invested the $900,000. We'll be including information on where the investment came from and the project in which you've invested in. You can be anywhere in the world when we file the I-526 petition. You can be in the United States, you can be in your home country, You can be visiting somewhere else. You can be anywhere in the world when we file that petition, and your funds can be invested into the project from your home country or wherever you're based at the time. You do not need to be in the US to make the investment. Now, eventually, when the I-526 petition is approved, if you're abroad, we will line you up for your immigrant visa appointment at the US consulate. Or if you're in the US, we will be adjusting your status from whatever visa status you're on to becoming a green card. Either scenario, consular application or adjustment of status, you wind up as what's called a conditional green card holder for 2 years. That green card is just the same in terms of rights and responsibilities as a non-conditional normal green card. It's just that this green card is valid for 2 years. So leading up to the expiration upon those 24 months, we're going to file the I-829 petition to complete the EB-5 process. This removes the conditions from the green card, meaning it turns it into a normal 10-year green card that you would renew over and over again. In order to get the I-829 petition approved, one of the key elements, or the key element of this, is to demonstrate that the 10 jobs have been created on your behalf of making the investment. That's when we'll reach out to the project side that you invested in to provide the documentation of the job creation. The money was spent on the project and the project was built. Upon doing so, you'll have completed the EB-5 process. Now, here's another timeline that demonstrates how perhaps you could navigate the EB-5 program while at the same time taking advantage of one of our non-immigrant investor visa options that's known as the E2. Why would you do this? Well, first off, the EB-5 process does take time. So I'll go back to our timeline where it says I-526 petition approved. It takes a number of months, sometimes a number of years to get the I-526 petition approved and then come in as an immigrant visa holder. To become a green card holder, I should say. And I will talk more about what I-526 timelines look like following my next slide. So for those of you who are looking to get to the US faster than that, the E2 visa option can allow just that. By making a smaller investment in the US, a smaller investment meaning lower than 900K, you can invest in a company that you would own and operate, move to the United States in a matter of months, live and work for that company with your family in the US, while at the same time waiting for your EB-5 petition to be approved, your I-526 petition to be approved. Once it's approved, we can just adjust your status from E2 visa to the EB-5 green card. And again, you would go on and 24 months later, be filing the I-829 petition to convert it to the non-conditional green card. So this is really just a great scenario for those of you who qualify for the E2, meaning you have a passport that has an E2 treaty with the United States. You move forward with making 2 different investments. One, the E2 investment into a company that you would own and operate, and 2, the $900,000 investment with an EB-5 project to move forward with simultaneous processes. One in which can allow for you to get to the US on a faster timeline, and the other that offers that long-term solution to become a green card holder for you and your family members. Now, EB-5 processing time, that's something that's always a hot topic in the EB-5 industry. I'm always discussing that with potential clients and existing clients. For years, USCIS, US Immigration, said that they processed those I-526 petitions on a first in, first out basis. Oftentimes that meant that foreign nationals from countries that were not big users of the EB-5 program were stuck behind the bigger users of the EB-5 program, such as China. If there are thousands of Chinese cases, USCIS was supposed to get to those first, when there may be a case from the Ukraine or Kazakhstan that could be waiting for adjudication as well, but behind those. In March of this year, USCIS changed that process, Instead, they're going to be processing I-526 petitions for foreign nationals on a first in by visa availability method. That means that they move all the backlogged Chinese investor cases because the Chinese investors for EB-5 are backlogged to the back of the line, and instead should be processing your case first if you're from a country that is not backlogged under the EB-5 category. And I'm showing you here, I've got the highlights in where they show which countries are backlogged under different categories. C means current, meaning not backlogged. You can see all chargeability areas. That means all countries that are not listed here are current, not backlogged. So we should start to see much better adjudication times. I would anticipate I-526 approvals in anywhere from 12 to 20 months or so. I just had 2 cases approved in 18 months for individuals from countries that are not backlogged. So that was very helpful to see. And that's just a good sign in terms of those of you who would be looking to leave your home country, perhaps either due to COVID-19 health issues that you might see coming, or financial issues that you might see coming in your home country. Having this backup plan or your absolute plan of moving to the U.S. could come to fruition much faster than previously anticipated in the years past, especially if you're coming from a country that is not backlogged.